Well, hello, come on in, pull up a chair or a big old beanbag. Today we're feeling mellow and playing with just two arty things, masking fluid and watercolours. Hurrah! I do enjoy a simple session. We're going to layer them and just have a jolly nice time. I'll be using a silicone brush to apply the masking fluid and some flat-headed brushes to paint the watercolours on with. My main pan of watercolours is from an Artful box, and I also have a Viviva Colors metallic watercolours book to add a little shine here and there. The masking fluid is called Aquafine by Rowney. It's so aqua, it's so fine! It's also a bit gungy on top. Ew. So I'm using a cocktail stick to give it a good old stir. This should make it nice and liquidy again, and we can get going with our first layer. Let's go! Now this session is all about playing and going with the fluidy flow, so I'm not sketching anything out first. Oh no, I'm going straight on in on the blank page with masking fluid. Ooh, it's very freeing not to worry about realism or accuracy. I'm just drawing with the fluid in a very loose way. I'm marking out the petals and the centre of a very simple flower. Can you tell? Well, it's not detailed or even connected up, but it doesn't need to be. For now, we just need the bare bones of the flower because we can add more details later on other layers. Okay, so that's enough of that. Let's leave it to dry. A few minutes later and the fluid has gone solid and a bit tacky. It's time for the next layer, and this one will be watercolour. I already have some leftover yellow in my mixing palette, so I'm starting with that. I'm keeping it pretty faint at first, washing it over the masking fluid lines in loose strokes. Then I make the colour a bit deeper and add in strokes of paint in between the bigger petal shapes. I add a few more in between those two just because it feels like the thing to do. Alrighty, now let's leave this to dry. Now, the watercolour is fully dry, and that's important because if it wasn't, we wouldn't be able to add masking fluid on top of it without it later pulling the paint away. So for this layer, I'm going to add masking fluid in little lines inside the yellow petal shapes. Nothing fancy, just plopping them on wherever it feels right. And yep, you guessed it, within moments, it's drying time again. Is drying going to be an ongoing theme in this video? Yes it is. Once the fluid has tackified, we can paint watercolour layer number 2, and this is going to be pink. I so love using a flathead brush to paint flowers. The angles of the brush mean you can sweep it diagonally and get some lovely pointy petal tips that feel organic and impressionistic. I find 3 sweeps of my brush works well on these petals, allowing a bit of the yellow to break through and defining the petal shapes more. It's still a pale shade though, because in this session we're taking our time and letting our colours build up gradually. I add in some slightly deeper, smaller pink petals in between the larger ones and dab a bit on the centre too. And then on a bit of a whim, I grabbed the metallic pink watercolour and added in a few strokes of it. I'm not sure if it added much on the whole, but it gives a subtle sheen that I rather enjoy. For this third layer of masking fluid, I'm trying to draw lines across areas of multicolour and also experimenting with adding dots and larger areas of fluid in the centre. I'll tell you now, this video is probably going to be a handful of minutes, but the whole process took a couple of hours, mainly due to the waiting time between each layer. While the painting is quick, the drying is slow, but I took advantage of the wait time by using it for tidying my shed space. In each drying pocket, I sorted out something like wiping down my surfaces, sorting out old artworks, or organising a drawer. It made me feel productive in the downtime, but I was also able to keep tapping into my creative brain every time I returned to the dried page. It felt like a very chilled out session, and yet I got a lot done. When it's dry, I use a deep pink in the centre of the flower, and then a deep purple. I let my brush noodle about on the page. If I blob a bit of purple somewhere that I didn't intend, I don't worry, I just go with it. I just want to create variation in the tones and placements of the colours, and if it looks a bit muddly, well, that's okay. The metallic watercolour whim returned again here, but this time with the gold because I thought it might look nice on the yellowy patches. And now we'll leave it to dry for the final time before we remove the masking fluid. Eee, that's my favourite bit. I'm not sure if there's a proper method for removing masking fluid, but I just use my finger, art bumpkin that I am. There is something so satisfying about rolling the tacky fluid off the page, and it generally comes off really easily. However, there were a couple of moments of, oh dear, when the fluid pulled up some of the paper with it. I think I had probably either put too much fluid down in too big a lump, or I had drawn it onto paint that hadn't fully dried. Either way, it wasn't the end of the world. On the tiny bit that ripped up, I simply stuck the flap down again with a bit of glue, and on the bigger bit that came fully off in the centre, I figured I'd just put a bit of paint on it. Lastly, I had a notion to add some paint splashes, so I flicked some of those on. Not sure it really added much, but it was fun. And that's it, my fluidy flower is done. Sure, it's a bit wibbly, but I think that's its charm. I really like how loose the lines are, and the colours came out fresh and vibrant. If you're still here, thanks so much for watching till the end. You really are a gem of the shiniest kind. Pop a gemstone emoji in the comments so I know who's keeping me company. Stay curious, keep making happy, and I'll see you next time.